Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman. In the first part of the show, it's entirely dedicated to our guest, and our guest today is none other than KABN Systems North America. If you haven't heard of them, then you're going to want to, and this is a great place to do that because it's all about your online identity. We have talked many times in the past about what happens when your identity is compromised, how it gets compromised, what to do after the fact. But now we're going to talk about not about compromising your identity, but what it means to have an online identity. And, again, we kind of know the ramifications when someone tries to be you and, collects data about you and things like that. But what's the next step beyond that? And that's actually owning and actually, maintaining an online presence, and well, not even just a presence, but an identity, and all the data that you generate, everything that you are, everything that you interact with. This company takes it a step further, and it's going to be a very interesting conversation. Today's guest is KABN Systems North America. Joining us is Mr. David Lucatch. He is the president, co-founder, and director of the company, and I'm very pleased that he's able to join us. So, David, welcome on to Computer America. How you doing?
Great, Ben. Thank you for having me here today. And I wanted to just comment, I'm looking forward to the second half of the show because I am a gamer and I just finished building a level 120 Beastmaster Hunter.
Yeah. Yeah, Beastmaster Hunter World of Warcraft, that's just, okay, so I was working on the show, but before that, I was, of course, playing World of Warcraft myself. That time-lost proto-drake will one day be mine, but until then, I'm sure that a lot of people out there are working from home and getting sneaking some fun time in there, but hey, that's what keeps us from going stir-crazy. Now, absolutely, and now, though, I wanted to, of course, talk about KABN Systems, and I'm really happy that you could join us. I think that a good place to start would be a little bit of an introduction. KABN Systems, when was it started? When was it founded? And yourself, what was your background? Have you always been in technology, or what is your background in the company background?
Well, thanks so much again for having us. So my background started in the late 80s. After finishing university, I dabbled in vectorization of graphics and started in the mid 90s in the internet. And I'm from north of the border. I'm from Canada originally. So in the late 90s, there was no way to buy anything online. And my first company actually worked with Visa and MasterCard to create the credit card payment gateways for online transactions for the Canadian banks. So that was the first foray into the internet. I then left that company just in early 2000 and in good shape. And took some time off and then went back to create an incubator. And we developed artificial intelligence and machine learning language translation for real time. Built that up, left that again, and that I'd foray into my next venture. And I like to say Homer Simpson looks for donuts and I look for holes. And what I started seeing was a great move towards where online identity was going, or digital identity. And we felt that there was this great need to empower consumers to own, manage, and monetize their online identity. So that's where KABN was born.
That's certainly a very interesting premise for, and it's great. So many people that come on the show, they are serial entrepreneurs. There's something either about the lifestyle, the startup, the kind of all the potential, and then they get everything. They get all their ducks in a row. They get some kind of serious funding, and then they're like, I'm too secure. I need to change. And then they break out and do something else. So your story is not uncommon for guests here on the show. But I also like the, kind of, as you said, the hole in this entire image of an online, kind of identity that is kind of missing. and here's how, and I was thinking about this before the show and how to put it into context. And I find this interesting because the internet developed, kind of as it developed onto itself. There were no rules. There, no one was saying, here's how the internet works. Here's how data collection works. Here's how this is, it's like, no, someone came up with the idea of packets, and I'm sure I could remember his name. But anyways, the internet was born, and then everything else kind of fell into place. It was the Wild West. Talk about how you saw, kind of the adoption of the internet and what's been happening with, first it was MySpace, and then of course Facebook and Google, really to an extent, and a lot of these other data vacuum companies started to come in. What was the problem there? And you mentioned, this was a problem. What was the problem with, people just taking all the data, and why wasn't that just, okay?
Well, I think it's very interesting. I'm glad you mentioned MySpace, because I had an opportunity to be a bidder on MySpace.
There you go.
I actually lost it to Justin Timberlake and his group. And in fairness to everyone, I think it was the best thing I ever lost. So, but we've always looked at data as having no value unless you can service it. And in the last 3 to 5 years, there's been a lot of changes in data management. And within Europe, there's been something called GDPR, or General Data Protection Regulation. And California adopted this year was the CCPA, or the California Consumer Protection Act. What it really does is it says that the data is yours. You're the originator of the data. You're an originator of the gold mine. The gold is yours. And our fundamental belief at KABN is that ownership of digital identity is a basic human right, and that the owners of that data should be the people that generate the most value. And what we really saw through the evolution of the internet was that large corporations were owning and managing the data. And I'm not going to say anybody in particular, but we've heard the horror stories where you go and see a billboard ad, and that's my vacation picture, right?
Yeah. And by the way, just real quick, just want to jump in there because this is such a strange topic, because I'm sure that anyone out there who has any kind of Facebook presence in particular, I've seen on other social media sites, but people will put these long block paragraph that looks like it was written by a lawyer, but no lawyer would sign off on it. They're saying like, I do not consent to Facebook to use my images and any other material, even though in the end user license agreement terms of service, whatever, Facebook says you upload it to our servers, it's our data, we can do whatever we want with it.
Right.
And people think they're protecting themselves, but like, you were talking about this, it's such an uneven footing, the difference between one person and Facebook, the entity.
Agreed. And we saw this as a very simple issue. I know it's complex, but we saw it as a very simple issue. When you go out into the real world, when most of us do, we carry a minimum of 2 things. I know we're carrying our mobile phones, and I'm going to leave that off to the side for a moment. Generally carrying a wallet, some form of wallet that carries our identification. It could be a rubber band with a driver's license and my registration and a little bit of cash. And we carry a key ring. And we believe that those 2 things are the primary containers that you need to manage identity. And we wanted to emulate those 2 items on the internet in a secured fashion where you would be in control of that identity. And really it's a very complex issue, but I think we've sort of boiled it down to something rather simple, because we're using what you already have to make your identity secure. So unless you've got an absolute identical twin, there are things about you that make you unique. And we can use those things called biometrics to help us make your identity unique unto yourself. And we can help you make sure that you're only sharing it with those that you want to share it with, or we like to say, share what you want with whom you want when you want. So we've really set that premise in motion.
It's a very strange concept, because I think that up until this point, if you ever wanted to use a service, you had to play by their rules. It's, if you don't agree with them, if you open up iTunes and you don't agree with that 200-page document, you hit cancel or I do not agree, it just closes down the application. They're like, well, yep, there you go. What are you trying to accomplish here? Because how are people who try to use something like KABN, how are they not just blocked out of applications and just refuse services as opposed to sharing, as you said, the data that you want to share?
Well, let's start at the beginning. So how do we take your identity, we control it and protect it? And we've developed something. We have something called KABN ID, which is a really cool biometrically controlled identity platform that is really focused on who you are. So that is verified identity that uses biometrics and existing centralized data, because we've got to start with something that you have to prove you're you. And we have a bank raid, what we call KYC, or Know Your Customer, and anti-money laundering tools and services that we can verify from your driver's license and a utility bill or something. We can verify that you are you. That's easy. We do that. So do many other companies. But they usually do it for corporations, which then own that identity. Even if we work with a corporation, our customers, our consumers, get something called KABN ID, which you're showing now on the screen. And KABN ID is a reusable identity that you own, you as a consumer own. And we're now combining that with something we call Liquid Avatar. And Liquid Avatar, we think, is so uber cool. Take my 30 plus years of gaming, going back to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or Leisure Suit Larry in the Land of Love. Yeah. Right? So, but what we've done is we've created this unique visual representation of who you are. You can upload your own photo. You can upload other images. You can use our digital creation studio. We combine that with something called dot code, which is like a QR code. And from there, and I can come to my Visa product in a moment, but from the Liquid Avatar product, we basically create a wallet and keychain that you can manage on your own. And inside that is digital credentials. So I think getting to the real crux of the answer of your question is no, we can't stop what you're giving to Apple. We can't stop what you're giving out. But what we can do is we can control that access. So we can say that if you want to get into Apple, only you can get into Apple, not someone who emulates you or someone who unfortunately pilfers your phone or does, a hack, what's called a SIM port hack, but hacks your phone number and then gets into your Google account, then steals all your passwords. We can protect those and make sure that only you can get into them, because your face, your voice print, your fingerprint, they're all you. And no one else can emulate those.
Do you think that by adding that additional layer, are you trying to be, to boil it down even further, kind of a two-factor authentication for services that traditionally don't have it? Or let's say a service does have a two-factor authentication, that's still within the company itself, and that could be compromised by any number of means. You're like a third-party two-factor authenticator for these services.
Yeah, we like to think of it as multi-factor rather than two-factor, because two-factor is one of those things where you usually get the code, and if I've hacked your phone, which I've had happen to me, if someone hacks your phone, and it's much more commonplace than people think, then they can all of a sudden get a text and get into your Google account and everything else. And I'm going to give everybody a hint: don't keep your passwords in Evernote, but. Yes, we're providing an independent, consumer-controlled, multi-factor authentication that I can prove that I am who I say I am. So in the future, in education, in credit card transactions, in online purchasing, in healthcare, in government, I can control what I share, with whom I share, when I want to share that information. Right? That's the key. If I own my identity and the things around me, I need to control when and where and how I want to share that.
And do you think something with, Liquid Avatar that we're showing here on the screen, and obviously, like you said, you can upload a picture if you want it to be, just strictly your face and you're good to go, or these avatars that you can create, or anything else that you want to put up there. But you think that this is a way to make it a little more user friendly, because even the concepts that, and I really do think that you're breaking this down very simply, but kind of online identity, I feel like so many users out there, they kind of say, I use a lot of the same passwords. I have one email address, and if I get hacked, I'll worry about that. But, it's kind of a daunting task for just the average person.
Sure.
Is this like a way to kind of make it a little bit more consumer friendly, a little bit more fun, and still get your mission accomplished?
I think so. I mean, we designed this around what we think the real world is, right? At the end of the day, I don't want to remember all my passwords. I can't remember all my passwords, and every time I go into a bank site, do I have to go, I forgot my password? Do I write them down on a piece of paper? What happens to me if something befalls me, whether an injury or something else? Liquid Avatar allows you to add a permission-based person that if something goes wrong, either minor or tragically, that your social media doesn't live on forever. So there's lots of reasons that I want to make my life simple. I don't go into my car and give it my password.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I go into my car and just, I don't get into my house by giving it a password. So why should I be doing that in the digital world?
Well, and really you do, but your password is something physical. Your password is, your car key, your house key,
Right.
something that, you can very, very quickly and seamlessly kind of control. And I guess you're trying to do that here. And by the way, I'm noticing that your logo, of course, has like a fingerprint. You mentioned other biometrics. If creating this is one thing, but do you use facial recognition? Do you use fingerprint scanning to control these kind of things, or is it kind of like here's my username and password just for KABN, everything else kind of falls into place after that? How does one manage KABN?
It's easy. We start with facial recognition because if I ask you to produce your centralized identity, 90% of it is going to be, if not more, in North America is going to be photo based, but it's connected to government databases and ID, and we have access through our partnerships to that information. So we start with facial recognition because that really is unique. We can effectively use other types of biometrics. We're working on voice print right now. We can use fingerprint, but fingerprint is really only used on your phone. So it's not used with any web-enabled camera device. So if I start thinking about tablets, if I start thinking about laptops, if I start thinking camera-enabled desktops, everything is open to us once we start using facial recognition. So we start there and work outward. And it's easy for someone to just look at a camera and show my face, right? Where it's difficult to try and figure out everything else. We want to make this simple for every age group. So we've done it that way. And at the end of the day, we've tried to make everything simple. I agree with you. We don't use a password, but we use a key. That's why we've kind of put the wallet concept and the key ring concept together. And no, you will not have to remember passwords because we'll allow you to vault those passwords, and then only you can get into them, or your permission-based people can get into them because you're authenticating with your face.
That leads, kind of to another part of it, and because this is the crux of this entire conversation, what data do you keep on your side? Because this, being able to monitor where your data goes is one thing. If you have to store everything on your servers, then hey, people are still sharing their data just with you instead. What protections do you have in place for your customers, and what do you keep?
So what we keep is a marker. This is where the blockchain comes in really nicely.
Yeah.
We take private information and we create it to binary markers: pass, fail, yes, no, true, false. So we're only keeping that marker within the system. So the sources of truth are off chain. So that adds a major level of protection. Secondly, we're not using any private data. We're using aggregated public data to create value from your original private data. So we don't want to know who you are exactly. We want to know who you are as part of a group. So, and then any data that you have control and access is vaulted like a safety deposit box. Only you have access to that.
I gotcha. No, and of course that's it's very important to certainly learn. And by the way, we'll include a link to Liquid Avatar as well. Kind of going through this, and hey, this seems to be. And when did you? Sorry if I didn't clarify this. Liquid Avatar, is this a new product from KABN, or did you partner with someone to kind of bring this to life?
Well, in fairness, I've been working on it for about 18 months. Again, thinking about the game industry and where avatars were going, I thought, initially 2-dimensional avatars were really cool, but we're also able to store 3-dimensional avatars as you would any type of piece of information. We were really focused on a business to business to consumer application, and we thought in March it was the right time to bring out Liquid Avatar, and we brought it out. So it isn't new, but it's very pervasive, and we have been getting outstanding reaction from social media, gaming, travel, education, all kinds of networks that have millions and millions of people in there that want to find a way to allow their customers to feel secure and be secure, but at the same time have some kind of economic relationship with those customers where there is affinity and value.
Makes perfect sense, and really, it looks like you put a lot of effort into this. And hey, this can definitely be used in a lot of different communities. You mentioned business to business there, and something like this. Let's say someone wanted to move a workforce of anywhere from 5, 10, 15, 100 people onto a service such as this. Is there any kind of benefit to moving an entire organization over to this, or is this strictly a consumer handling their information?
Well, that is an absolute great question. We have developed personas. So in my life, I have different personas. I have my business persona and I have my family persona. And in a business persona, I only might want to share my business information with somebody, where in a personal, I want to share my social media with somebody. So we have the ability to create different personas within Liquid Avatar. So you could be part of a major organization and have only that information shared with business contacts, where you could share personal information with your family, and with your friends share different information. You are able to control, again, what you want to send, when you want to send, and how you want to send it. We've really taken the complexity out of sharing information, made it easy to share with everyone in your ecosystem very simply, and the product is free to consumers. It's absolutely, there's no cost for the product.
And hey, that's something that a lot of people really concerns, especially working from home.
Sure.
They don't they don't want the same messages going to their Facebook friends as they do their work colleagues and things like that, and oversharing and sharing with the correct groups of people. You have this nice diagram here that kind of shows that a person can kind of send out text and things to certain people, and that's something I think is more needed now than ever to help corral, I guess, kind of workforces together and do this right. So with that being said, I wanted to, obviously you've been rolling this out and people have been using it. Have there been any kind of reaction to kind of ease of use, simplicity, these avatars, that kind of thing? How are people receiving this? Is it something that I started using it and I just kind of fell into step and it's really easy to use? Are they giving you ideas for the future? How do you see how do you see the digital identity industry evolving?
That's again, great question. We're Liquid Avatar is really in its early stages. We started rolling it out in March, and we'll go invitation only live in June. And people can sign up now to be part of that invitation only opportunity at liquidavatar.com. But the reaction has, I've in my 30 odd years in technology, I've never seen a better reaction. People are excited about this. One, because it's no cost. Two, because I can create a value proposition to find offers and opportunities that only I want, that benefit me. And workforces, social media, gaming, as I said, education. We're being approached by all kinds of different organizations to discuss this opportunity because it is simple. It isn't complicated. I mean, the fact that you can create different personas. You can create your own avatar. You can change things. You can manage your digital identity. Many people have said to us, this is what they've been looking for. I mean, they've been waiting for something like this. And we believe, if you take the principle of a wallet, we believe, and we're seeing, I mean, IBM made an announcement this past week about trust over IP, about creating digital credentials. So there'll be all kinds of digital credentials created in the next few years, whether it's a digital driver's license, a health card, whatever it might be. You're going to see a lot of digital credentials, and you're going to need to keep those all in one place. Same as access to all your valuables. So we believe that Liquid Avatar solves that issue. It is highly secured container for the things that make you, you.
I think that's the other side of that is, of course, with way back at the beginning, you mentioned things like GDPR, and of course California's one as well. That, you know, and what happens in Europe, or at least the Eurozone, and in California, that's going to spread to all different countries and states, and it's just going to be the norm. Yeah, companies themselves are going to have to realize that, should we have this data, you know, can we be, you know, are there consequences for us keeping this data? Because up until now, before this, you kind of mentioned that if you had the data, it was your data. You know, you even if you pulled it off of someone, hey, it's your data. You can do whatever you want with it. That's quickly changing. Do you think something like this addresses that side of the business world, that, you know, the days of just having as much data as you possibly can, those are kind of coming to an end. Now it's about, you know, are we putting anyone at risk? You know, we hear about these massive data breaches where millions of names, social security, payment information, addresses, email addresses. Are you hoping something like this, you know, kind of helps companies manage that they don't make headlines by leaking everyone's information?
Well, that's part of our answer. As I said, both myself and my CEO were victims of one of the major hospitality hacks, and we travel, and so we believe that compromise led to a compromise of both of our phones independently, two different countries, and over different periods of time. There was only one commonality that we found. So the other thing too is that these new regulations actually put data by law in the hands of consumers. Consumers are in control, but it's you know, if I gave you the keys to something that you couldn't drive and you got in and tried to drive it, it would be a mess. Yeah. So we believe that Liquid Avatar and KABN ID help consumers, you know, verify, manage, and monetize their identity. It gives them a way to crawl, walk, run through these new, you know, new opportunities. And for corporations, we meet and or exceed those new edicts. So we can work with corporations to help them in the event that a consumer wants to be removed or forgotten from a database.
That's definitely a huge one, and one that Google has to deal with probably on a weekly basis with different lawsuits and things like that. And by the way, today's show not brought to you by Marriott. So with that being said, everyone, let's go ahead and move well, actually, before we move on to the next topic, I wanted to ask you, David, about, you know, so far you've mentioned all the different customers, corporate, that kind of thing. The avatar, obviously, that's something that you would see a younger generation definitely using. Obviously, when it comes to corporate, you know, kind of middle-aged, upper as well. Who do you see as kind of the target audience for this? Who are your potential clients?
Well, we think it starts with millennials and Gen Zs, right? That's where we think it starts. But you know, you can tell by the white beard I've been around a bit. So we know that young people have a tendency to influence older people, and so we think that if this is embraced, and if you think about Facebook was originally adopted by university students, and is now an older demographic is a massive part of what Facebook does. So we think that as younger people adopt this, people in my age demographics, boomers and youngers, and Gen X will also adopt it. So we're not precluding anyone. We think of digital identity as addressable to 100% of the online market. Now we could throw a question back at you, Ben, and say, other than search engines, tell me something that is 100% addressable to the online market. It's tough.
Yeah. Yeah, it's obviously things like home delivery that doesn't really kind of matter to people who travel a lot and that kind of thing. You could take just about anything, and there's going to be gaps in it. But at the same time, we've made this argument here on the show for the past at least 10 years, um, and it's that the internet is a utility at this point. The internet is necessary, and if anything, this whole pandemic has really kind of shown us that the internet is more than ever a necessity for people. So I would say, yeah, you're right that online identity management is 99% at least.
Well, if you're under the privacy rules, anyone 13 years and younger, we would not accept.
Sure.
So it does take it. But if you think about the North American market, that still is 300 million people. I mean, that's a nice sized market. And just to add to your earlier comment, I'm a big fan of Marriott. I do travel a lot and do stay at Marriott. And the second thing is, what most people may not know is that Google has recently announced that they're giving up third-party cookies. So the ability to manage your data and be able to find great deals based on that data is going to put you in a different position. So that's where we're here to help too, that based on the power of aggregated data, we're going to be able to bring Liquid Avatar users and KABN ID users great opportunities, including our visa program.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to talk about that. And by the way, I just wanted to definitely point out that I said today's show was not brought to you by Marriott, so it's perfectly okay. Marriott, and Marriott is just unfortunate because you mentioned that your data was stolen from a compromise. We have a cybersecurity expert that comes on the show every month, and that was just hey, I think they had like 500 million records stolen over the past couple of years. They are one of many organizations that have been compromised. So it's I was being tongue in cheek, but trust me, there are many others that are just as victimized as them.
Agreed. And a lot of that data is hacked not from primary servers, but generally from back or credit card based servers, right? Because people have to keep credit card information. So it is challenging, very, very challenging.
For sure. So talking about obviously you are cultivating this user base who now is able to manage what services that they are going to, kind of share their information with, and you are in turn going to be able to take your, that chunk of users and say, hey, look, here's people that's rightfully so, trust us that we're going to make decisions that are best in their interest, and also we're going to be able to, almost like collective bargaining, I guess, but obviously this is going to be a form of advertising. Talk about the Pegasus flight card, talk about this kind of banking program, because this is something that when, again, kind of an individual will never be able to see something like this, but a collective is going to have more bargaining power, a better position to talk about things like this. This seems to be, I don't want to say your end goal, but this seems to be something that you can do to further, help your organization after you have these kind of users. So talk about this, why you decided something like a credit card banking app was good to roll into a identity management software.
Well, if we're doing digital identity, we're verifying a user, and if a user is verified, and we do it at a bank grade level, then the user can be brought opportunities that make sense. And I think your comment about collective bargaining is a really good one. It's the power of the network. It is the law of large numbers. The more people we have, the better the deals we can bring to people based on their individual demographics. And for a commercial company, it's all about, can we bring them to people who are real? So if we talk about gaming, and you're a gamer, I'm a gamer, we might have 10 accounts on a game, but that's really individual when it's verified. So it's more economical for the game company and for the advertiser to know that they're reaching one individual that's qualified than 9 others that aren't qualified. That's just spillover, and that's a loss of economic value. So we think that banking and financial services, and we've been fortunate enough to work with partner banks and been approved by Visa based on our program, and below that KABN Cash will allow us to bring users in our network based on their public demographics. and public data, not their private data, but pools of data, will be able to bring them better deals. And that might be financial services, retail services. It is the power of people. And ideally, it's not, we don't sell or rent data. In your app and online, you'll be able to see the offers that are pertinent to you. And you can control all that data. So, if you're looking at a travel deal, it doesn't mean you're going to get 5,000 travel ads. It means you're going to get the things that you want to see that are better for you. If we can make your life 1% better, the value proposition we'll create will be enormous.
Yeah, it's and really that's something that I think people have really woken up to. As much as people were against cookies and tracking and that kind of thing. At the same time, though, hey, it's the reason why a 20-year-old isn't getting prescription medication deals in home delivery, that kind of thing. Not saying that no 20-year-old would ever need that, but I'm just saying that, hey, what's pertinent to you, I think people would rather see what's relevant to them than just random.
Exactly.
Truly random is, random. So with that being said, KABN Cash, that kind of thing. And by the way, you mentioned it way back when, blockchain, it has been a topic on the show. We're not going to go into a full explanation over what is the blockchain. But of course that rolls into things like cryptocurrency. Here you have a banking application, you have a credit card, that kind of thing. So far you haven't said anything about KABN coin or anything like that. Why not? Creating your own cryptocurrency was all the rage 2 years ago. Did that ever come up?
Well, it did on a global basis, and we have the ability to look at because we're dealing in a regulated environment with identity. We don't think of and not to get into blockchain, because there's two parts to blockchain. Obviously, there's the technology of blockchain, which is what we use, which is the way to enhance databases with trustless approvals. We won't go into high tech here, but it's a new way of securing databases. That's the way we look at it. But one of the ways of creating that security, obviously, was the introduction of what we called mining or coins. And at KABN, we've looked at the digital currency arena, and digital currency to us is more than crypto. Think about all your points programs. Think about all your affinity programs. How many points are left over at the end of the year that you just don't spend or you never spend? Well, we're looking at ways to take those points through the Pegasus Flight program so that your points have value, your digital currency has value. So we are looking at all kinds of new and innovative ways based, again, on the power of people. If 1 million people, had 1,000 points, you've got 1 billion points. That is something to the company that issues points. So there is a lot of opportunity here to look at the emerging and changing environment with digital currencies and creating new ways to create value. But it is all initially about empowering users to own what they own, which is starting with their identity, and then empowering them to get value from that identity.
What I just got from that was not yet, but we're thinking about it. So
we are thinking about it, but but we would do something, and we have proposed doing something that is related to security issues, not utility issues.
I gotcha. No, and of course it's once you build out the platform, introducing new kind of new features and that kind of thing becomes so much easier, because then you have an audience that can adopt it, and then of course snowball it. And hey, it's not hard to see where this whole thing can go. But I think, though, that's that might be my last question to you. We have covered a lot of ground. You have a great lineup of products, and of course, between Liquid Avatar and KABN ID, this concept of owning your identity online is important, and really, you could spend years really trying to perfect this and bring it to consumers, because this is something that the internet was developed as the Wild West. There were no rules, there were no regulations. Now we're starting to get more and more regulation, and people are starting to get concerned over what data have I shared, what data am I sharing, who am I sharing it with. You're tackling that. It's going to take some time. Where's KABN go from here? Is it as I said before, refining? Is it new products? Is it of course expanding the user base? Or, as I'm going to guess, all the above?
I think it's. I think the easy way to answer is all above. And I did want to go back to just to quickly to an earlier. KABN Systems North America Inc. is going public, so we are kind of doing a currency offering, but we are going public initially in the Canadian markets, and we are looking at the U.S. markets as well.
Gotcha.
But I think that what's important, Ben, is that we are looking at all the above. I think the important situation is we've bitten off a lot. KABN ID is up and running. Pegasus Flight is approved. KABN Cash and Liquid Avatar will launch in late this quarter by invitation only. So, and we do already have early stage agreements in place for millions and millions of users to join the ecosystem. So we've done a lot in a short period of time in the last really year that we brought KABN to light in North America. And I think we have a very, very great future ahead of us. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to tell you our story today.
Our pleasure. And really, you have solved that concept that I was talking about earlier about, well, serial entrepreneur, I feel too secure. You have a lot of work ahead of you, but it's definitely, like you said, a lot of potential. And you have an important job ahead of you. And I really hope to hear an update from you later in the year. We'll definitely get back in touch and see where it is that you've gone. And everyone, if you'd like to check it out, and I'll go ahead, David, and let you also, kind of correct me if I'm wrong. Best place to go, KABN, KABN network. That will bring you to their website. We'll have a link to it over at Computer America. David, where's the best place to go? I'm assuming the website.
The website, and you can also go to that's our global site. You can purely go to our North American site at KABNsystemsna.com as well. And, we're happy to answer any questions that users might have. And you can go to .com as well to look at the Liquid Avatar site.
I got you. Yeah. And by the way, just so people, kind of see here that you have North America, Caribbean, Europe, UK, you guys are kind of spread out. So, a lot of different, a lot of different places. So there you go. And hey, we'll include that in the show notes as well. So David, until next time, I want to thank you so much for your time. Thank you. And hey, we're going to go ahead and finish the show up with computer technology news, but we're going to say goodbye to you and do our thing. So David, until next time, have a great one. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.